Welcome to the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force Steering Committee meeting for May 2nd, 2024. It's 11 a.m. and we're meeting in a hybrid format today. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I think we will go straight into our agenda. IPTRF 2024 annual report. Jill?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. If you have your packet handy, we've got most of our submissions from all of you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to scroll through these quickly. I'm not going to linger on each one, but feel free to stop me if you have any questions. Birdie? Let's see. Oh, there's Birdie. Hang on a second. Okay. Birdie, go ahead. I guess she doesn't have a question. Birdie, go ahead and raise your hand again, or just speak up if you have.
I didn't have a question. I just needed to get added.
Oh, okay, got it.
Thank you.
So you can all see what we've got on here. The first one is court programs. I did this one earlier last week and sent it up to Bruce and Jake, which they've approved. Court programs. Fentanyl resolution. I started with a nuts and bolts little draft and sent that buried to you to fill out and complete if you want to do that.
Yes, I do. I'll get on that today.
Okay. The data section is from Birdie. Thank you very much. Justice project implementation plan. I very sparsely got this started also for you guys. If you want to fill this out, this will need a little bit more information. I'm hoping we'll have some more information about the vendor by the time this report is ready to be published. We should hopefully have someone chosen by then. Legislative priorities. I put this together and sent it to Kayla for her review, if she has time. I really wanted to focus in this section less on what the priorities were and more on how the IPRTF contributed to the conversation here. So you'll see a heavy emphasis on that in this section about the legislative agenda. And yes, it's a little lengthy, so I will probably cut down on that a little bit. The discussions in Legal and Justice Systems Committee about the public defender's status and national defense workload that Maya presented. I put this together and sent it to her also for her review and approval. And again, it's pretty lengthy and will need to be cut down a little bit. This is the content that Perry Mowry set on EMS and law enforcement drop-off challenges, the Crisis Stabilization Center census, and the 23/7 Crisis Relief Center. Perry is out of office for the next couple weeks, so he's not here today. But here is his information. I don't have anything from anyone on pretrial processes work group. This is the content that was in the year-end report from December. I'm seeing hands raised. Peter, go ahead.
I spent much of my morning reading through this. It's all very good material. Should I or someone else write an executive summary for this? It seems like it's going to be a lot for people to absorb, and I expect that there are some folks that would do well with an executive summary. What are your thoughts?
I usually put together an executive summary and all of the reports, but if you want to take that on yourself, feel free. That would be great.
Okay, let me think about that in the coming couple weeks, and we'll figure that out. But thank you.
Sure. Raylene?
Thank you. I think on the pretrial services group, we always need to make sure we differentiate between the pretrial processes work group that it's for Superior Court in lieu of the pretrial program that's been working for the courts of limited jurisdiction and district court, as well as on this pretrial processes work group. I think we can work with Barry and Stephanie for updates on this. I'm not Barry, sorry. I'm looking at you, Barry, and I'm thinking Stephanie and
Perry,
Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen.
Yes, Stephen would be the other person that would be able to update and make sure we've got everything in there. Thanks.
That sounds great. Thank you, Raylene. We do have a pretrial processes work group meeting tomorrow, so I will mention that during the meeting.
Perfect.
Mike?
Yeah, could you scroll up just a little? Thanks, Jill. As always, your drafting is great and gets so close to a finished project. So I always appreciate what you do. And to Peter's point, I think if we could see your executive summary, you always provide it with time for us to provide edits and suggestions. So I've always appreciated that in the past. Really quick on the and Deacon Center for Hope. When I was looking and I saw that Perry gave you some draft language, which is super. I don't think he covered the most recent kind of forum for the behavioral health subcommittee and legal and justice joint that Peter Frazier so definitely facilitated for us. Am I right in that there's not really a write-up about that particular piece?
I haven't read through this particular submission yet. I just got it right before he went on vacation for a couple weeks on Friday. So if there's any content that's missing that needs to be added, I'm happy to add that.
Okay. I was just wondering, I guess, Jill, if you were planning to add at least a brief synopsis. I know that I think there's already some minutes from that. I think it would be great to do that because it kind of summed up, I think, some of the other pieces. And I think there's also things that we will want to follow up, action items and things that were kind of pending. So that would be great to have that brought to the forward, whatever shape possible. If it's not in the draft, I'd be happy to react to it once it's in there. And
okay. Thank you very much. You're referencing the last joint meeting, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
I thought it was particularly instructive, and I know this task force has talked about it quite a bit, but that particular thing I think was extremely useful, and I think it would provide some good content for the report as well.
Sure. Peter?
I just wanted to confirm, Mike, that wasn't addressed, and I believe it should be. Another thing, Jill, I think that I'd like to propose that I do an executive summary as I need to prepare a presentation for the council anyhow. And it might overlap, though maybe we could have a discussion about it and see if perhaps, they serve particularly different purposes. So not trying to put more work on myself necessarily, but it does seem like it would be part of what I would be doing anyway. And then my other question for you, Jill, is what do we still need to get here? And is there anything that we're particularly missing?
Well, if I may finish going through the submission
sure.
that we have, and then we can go back to our main list and see where we're at with all of this. Superior Court pretrial processes. Competency restoration, this is what Perry did for that, and I think, Barry, you are gonna be a co-writer on this, so. if
Yeah,
you-
Perry and I touched base before he left on vacation. So
Okay.
I looked at this.
Perfect, thank you. And that is it, so Peter, let me go back up to our list here. I will say that I've got a quick turnaround to get this first draft in the task force's agenda for this month. I'll need to put together put together a first draft tomorrow. Basically, the IPRTF agenda will go out on Monday. So if you all have anything in particular that you want to add, I would say please get it to me sooner rather than later. If you don't get it to me tomorrow, that's fine. We can submit it to the task force members after the agenda packet is published, or even at the meeting. If you have something in writing we can put before their eyes, that would be great.
So one thing I would add, and Peter mentioned it as far as the presentation to council. Peter and I did talk a little bit when we were together back in Ohio last week about kind of what the council kind of expects to hear. But I was just curious, since this is our co-chair's first time doing the report, does anybody on steering have any words of wisdom, anything that you'd like to make sure that gets into the actual report given to council that needs emphasis? You don't have to come up with that right now, but that'd be something to think about, to send to us to make sure that we get a good effective presentation to council.
Thank you, Barry. Looking at this list of topics, this needs to be updated just a bit here. We have number 5, Justice Project Implementation Plan, Barry and Peter. New leadership, that's a section that Peter sent today and I forwarded to you all earlier today. Competency restoration again is done. Pretrial processes is in process. I'll talk to those folks tomorrow. And number 10, crisis relief. So I think we're doing a real good job of getting all of our topics together. We've got them all. It looks like we've got them all, at least in a somewhat of a very draft format.
And Brian Estes sent in the 988 today. And I'm not sure about number 12. I guess that was in there.
Yeah, that's what Barry's gonna work on.
That's me, yeah.
Barry, I've got a question for you. Are you feeling done with the implementation plan report out, or where are we with that?
No, I haven't even really dug into it. I plan on doing that. I just got a lot on my plate this week, and we'll get to it this week though.
Okay. Let's see. So I did a report out. What was it, for the Behavioral Health Committee, maybe 2 or 3 months ago? And I'd be very interested in talking with you about my experience doing that. And I think showing what the progress the county has made project by project was pretty helpful. So anyway, I'd love to be helpful in any way I can, Barry, on that.
Yeah, I'll circle back with you later on in the week. Maybe, well, later on it's Thursday, so I'll try to hit you up later today. Maybe.
It's Friday. Okay, sounds good.
So just a couple more points right quick. I will schedule these drafts before committees at the June meeting, so the committees can get eyes on and provide feedback. All these drafts that you're seeing here in your packet today have not yet been edited for things like consistency, clarity, style, etc. So I will be doing that hopefully with Jenna's help if her workload allows. So just keep in mind that these are drafts right now. And that's it.
One more quick question, Jill.
Yeah.
I've got one more question. Let's see. So I sent you that new leadership report. I've already done. I'm working on a second draft of it for clarity and filling some things out. So when did you say that you need something tomorrow for the IPR main body meeting, or was it next week? I didn't
If
quite
you
catch
want
that.
it, sure, if you want it in the packet that goes out to the task force for its meeting, then I will need it by end of day tomorrow.
Okay,
If you don't get to it, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. It can be submitted after the fact.
okay.
Yeah, if you have something in writing. Did you want me to load that up and so the others can take a look at it right quick? I'm happy to do.
Are you, which one are you referring to? There were actually two things, and I sent you the, how was it referred to? Kind of the reconfiguration of committees and such.
Either one.
Okay, well, let's go through the rest of the agenda and then maybe we can get to that.
Okay.
Okay, so we will move on to rules of procedures, the IPTRF member proxies on committees. This is, Jill, what kind of decision do we need to make on this?
So thank you. This is a question has come up specifically with the Behavioral Health Committee. We've got a couple of IPRTF members, agencies that have more than one of their staff attending the Behavioral Health Committee. And so I think my question is just, I really need clarification in terms of official membership on the committee. It counts for quorum and voting and such. So for the Behavioral Health Committee, we have both Courtney and Nathan. They're both public defender reps. And then also from the health department, both Melora and Perry. Perry is assigned Melora to attend behavioral health as his rep, but then he's also asked or indicated to me that he's going to be attending those meetings anyway himself. So I just want to get a general sense from you guys on, let me put this back up so you can see what my questions are here. Give me a sec. Can an IPRTF member have more than one representative on one committee? Would they both be voting? And I think in terms of our rules of procedure and the county code on the task force, it can allow, of course, more than two people representing one agency, just if that's the way you guys want to go. So I'm not sure if I'm being real clear here. So, Peter?
Oh, I think you're being good and clear. I gave it a little thought this morning, very interested in any discussion that comes out of this. Because I don't know all, the different things that could happen, but it does seem to me that there should be one vote per seat. But at the same time, for instance, with the public defender's office, I don't mind having two people from the public defender's office be in each meeting, just so that maybe they're trading off, maybe they're fulfilling one seat, I don't know, but the more people who are informed and involved, the better. But voting, there should really be only one vote per seat, it seems to me. What are other people thinking?
Hey, Dan, you're the one of the co-chairs of that behavioral health. What do you think? What's been your experience?
I think to Peter's point, I mean, we could limit, one vote per agency. I think that would address the bulk of the concerns here. But I do agree that having people, and the ones that were cited are not the only ones. So, I think Heather's on this call, and I just brought on Dr. Wu. Although he's not a paid employee of Chuckanut Health Foundation, he is an intern, so he's associated, and I believe he is or was on their board. And so they're, that's yet another organization that has where we have some additional people that are attending these meetings. So I would say, didn't mean to put you on the spot there, Heather. I would say we could probably, I'd be okay with limiting, one vote per organization, but there are advantages of having multiple voices from the same organization because they just are. Dr. Wu is an absolute additive, and then having folks from public defense, I think the same thing. And so I think that I say we just limit the vote to one.
Anybody else? I agree with that. I think
Mhm.
that's always been kind of my understanding of how it would run if it was kind of left on its own even, but it makes sense. Other folks? Heather?
Hi.
Hey, I'm
I'm
glad to see
here.
you.
Nice to see everybody. Booker's sleeping. My welcomed Booker to the world on April 22nd. So we're on day 9 or 10, I think. So
Yeah.
What a
so I'm just
what a great blues player named Booker. I just,
Booker Rory.
yeah.
So thanks for letting me share that celebration with you. And just for clarification too, Dan, I am appointed here as a citizen, not as a Chuckanut representative. I don't think that changes the discussion, but just so you know. And Dr. Wu and I have talked about that, like, there are some meetings that both of us will be available and will want to listen. And I love being present, but that he and I would work out who's actually going to be the voting person in that meeting. And so there's like an agreement that we already have a tacit agreement that we are not going to get 2 votes per our 1 seat. And we've just worked that out. And I support that 1 vote, but more people with ears and perspectives and participation is really good too. So
Mhm.
Dan.
Yeah, to complicate matters, Mike and I have been talking to folks out at Whatcom Community College, and there are 3 people out there that come from different backgrounds. I think would be super additive to the Behavioral Health Committee in particular. And so this just we live in a we don't live in a small community, but the circles that we travel in are fairly concentrated, put it that way. So I don't want to have limitations on being able to ask people to come on board this committee just because they work at the same place. I don't want that limitation. I think that's an artificial limitation. And just real quick for the history here. So we had a pretty expansive group that was on behavioral health, but we lost some people because of employment changes and such. And so I want to make sure that we are able to kind of basically rebuild that committee. And part of that's going to, we're just going to see people from the same organization or company. So that's my 2 cents on that. And I'll just say again that if we limit voting, that should address it.
So Jill, are you looking to draft something into to the policies and procedures and bylaws that would clarify this?
I can,
Or just, is this discussion sufficient?
I think for now, this discussion is sufficient. Let me have a think on that, though. I do appreciate the discussion, and just to sort of make sure I understand what I'm hearing, it sounds like you want, in terms of voting, it's 1 person, not the IPRTF member and their proxy, right? But in terms of being called a member, it can be anyone. So we'll have, for instance, both Melora and Perry as members. So that's totally fine with me. I think we can definitely do that.
So then we'll leave it up to the co-chairs to make
Yeah.
sure that they do that correctly as far as the 1 vote per seat. Yeah.
Sure. And the only thing that I would ask all of you committee chairs to keep in mind is when you're issuing these invitations, please make sure that these folks you're inviting can attend each meeting, because if we have people who only attend once in a while, it's going to impact whether or not we get a quorum for each meeting. And it will make getting a quorum a little more difficult if people can't attend regularly.
Peter,
I'd like to throw out a complication. Perhaps it's a complication or it's something for us to think about. J-pop is a committee of this August body, and I'm not sure it'd be okay to expand that beyond what the council has, the seats that the council has approved.
Yeah.
What are
I
your
think that's
thoughts?
correct, Peter. Yeah. I agree with what your analysis there. I think the council's made that very clear.
Yeah. So we're going to treat J-pop differently than the other committees is what I'm hearing.
Jill?
Oh, thank you. In either way, how that's handled is, I don't have a skin in that game. I will say though that the enabling ordinance and the implementation plan, I think they both specifically say that the J-pop committee will make sure, part of their responsibility is to ensure that they have a broad diversity of membership. And that might not necessarily be achievable given the limited number of specific positions that are outlined. So I think you might want to think about how important it is to make sure that, well, how to ensure that diversity given that we have these very specific positions only. So that's just something to think about.
Dan?
Oh, I think J-pop is totally different than the committees that we currently have on the task force. It's very specific mission compared to the broad-ish missions that the other ones have. I mean, I think of behavioral health coming from that perspective, and we cast the net pretty wide. And I mean, we're doing stuff upstream. We invited Chris Cochran was part of that group for a while from Bellingham Schools, and it was coming from a youth perspective, so an upstream diversion perspective. So I think J-pop needs to it needs to be more specific, and it needs to follow the directives that the county council has set forward.
Heather?
Okay, just a clarifying question. Is there a place, Jill, where there could be like on a nonprofit board, right? You can have non-voting members that are called advisors. And then you don't have to worry as much about, like, there's 3 Whatcom Community College people, there's just 1 vote. I just don't want to confuse people about, like, if you're a member, I don't know. So is there a way to make a different category, or is that already what you're saying?
I don't think there's anything that prohibits that. And the council has made it clear they want approval on J-pop committee members. And on giving this some thought a few days ago, Barry, tell me about what you think about this. But if the established membership of J-pop as that we have now, if they recommend adding these other members, I don't think there's any reason why we can't put together a list of these additional members, put it before council for council to approve. That way council still has some agency in deciding who's on the committee while still allowing it to expand beyond the current listed membership. Barry, I don't know if that's a tactic or a technique that you think might be acceptable to council.
I think it's something to think about. I hadn't thought about it yet, but
Yeah.
that's certainly a good question. Mike?
I like both of them. So, Jill, I like your latest selection because I think it's possible that some people the process itself would benefit from additional voting members, and I think those obviously should be approved by the council. But Heather, I really like your comment about having a non-voting member. It can give us a way to make that bigger tent, right, and get those perspectives and get the benefit for the entire group. But you still have, you know, can vote that are properly appointed by the county. I think you could achieve a really good outcome by having both. But I do want to say that I appreciate what Councilmember Hamel said, that I think it does need to be different. Just been due to the subject matter at hand, some of the things that they'll be asked to consider and to vote on and recommendations. I think that it is not a free-for-all, but the way to have it not be a free-for-all and still have a big tent and be inclusive, I think that process matters. And so I like the idea of should folks on that group, the co-chairs of that group, you know, wish to add people, they could suggest to add people, and then they could distinguish, as long as we say that's all right, between a voting versus non-voting, and anybody that they wish to add that's not currently in a seat as a voting, that would need to go before council. So I just gonna echo that. I think it's a good way to do both, and I think it is important to be different and to distinguish it as different.
And I think, Mike, there's certainly ways to accomplish all that if we just really are thoughtful. Anything else on that item? That kind of a good segue into the Justice Project Implementation Plan and the JPOP and the RFP that has been issued, and we have gotten the responses back, and we're having our opening on Tuesday, right, Jill?
Yes, that's correct. We have not received any responses yet, but people are certainly interested, so that's a good thing.
Oh, okay, okay. So that'll happen Tuesday afternoon. As far as if there's anybody here, I don't know, Executive Sadu, did you want to talk about anything on the implementation plan from your side, from the executive's office? May have stepped away. Okay. As far as the council goes, we are just waiting to get the JPOP seated, of course, and get our facilitator on board. And Jill, anything to add?
The only other thing that I will add, I don't know if Sat Paul is listening or not. I submitted the supplemental budget request to Dana, who submitted it to finance, and I have not seen that come across yet in an ordinance. I emailed Tawny earlier today to check on the status of that. So we still need to get council approval from that, I think, unless it's come through and I missed it. But that's the only other thing to keep in mind.
Are you concerned about the timeline, or are we still okay?
I'm not concerned about it yet, but I do want to make sure it gets addressed soon, because once we open bids next week, we'll need to put together, if we receive more than one bid, we'll need to put together an evaluation team and start selecting one of those bids if possible and negotiating contract.
Bertie, you're on mute.
Just a quick clarification. What is the opening next Tuesday?
Any of the bids that come in,
Oh,
the finance
okay.
doesn't open,
For the
they
facilitator,
literally
yeah.
open them, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that, on the implementation plan? Okay, next task force meeting. Jill, we have a full agenda in May, correct?
We do have a full agenda in May. We've got a presentation from NSBHASO, Jan Rose Ottaway Martin, the executive director. We've also got Tyler will be doing some presentations on the Justice Project financing agreement, and also identifying Whatcom County approaches to the fentanyl emergency. So that's, I think there was a resolution passed on that.
Jill, I think Tyler's last day is the 10th, so you might want to check on that.
Oh, so, okay, I will. Kayla said she wasn't gonna be here for that meeting, so I
Well,
will.
I don't know that. I just heard that. I think that's correct, but
Okay.
you might want to check on.
I will check on that. Thank you. So this will be a full agenda, assuming that someone from the exec's office will be able to make those presentations.
Okay.
To the task force.
So that agenda is definitely packed. For June, we have the executive order from the mayor's office. And what else do we are thinking for June? Anybody? Peter?
Got a few things I'd like to bring up, that might fit into June.
Okay.
It would now be a good time. I've got 4 or 5 things to.
Yeah, that's what this agenda item is for, so.
All right, very good. Let's see, so in your inbox is a document I have put together called Proposed IPRTF Committee Reconfigurations and Focus. And it is a document that is a proposal for how we might be able to reconfigure the way we do some process in our committees. As you know, Heather and Bertie and I have been attending all of the committee meetings over the last month or so, and soliciting feedback from members to get ideas on where we've been, where we're going, how we can move towards greater action. And so I would really like to start to move into a planning, a time for planning, and have set an agenda for our entire body, and then sub-agendas for the committees, and in combination with the co-chairs. And so the document I've sent out is a proposal. I would really love for everybody here and the co-chairs to read it, and then we can discuss. It should inform something that we could talk about in June. So it's all built around the implementation plan, and each project being assigned to a given committee, and then in collaboration with the co-chairs, what else we need to be working on, and are those kind of sub projects of each of the implementation projects. But it's all to get us moving, planning well in advance, and making sure that we're taking appropriate action on the implementation plan as far as this advisory body goes. So there's that. Also, as you'll see in this document, I'm proposing that we change the Crisis Stabilization Facility Committee to a Facilities Committee. Part of our process over the last month has been to encourage the co-chairs to go back and look at their original charter and do some consideration around how those might be adjusted. And this document hopefully is going to inspire each committee to do some more of that work. But it is very clear to me, anyhow, that the Crisis Stabilization Facility Committee is no longer, its mission partly has been completed, and we have other facilities that we're planning, and we need a committee that's really doing the work to oversee that and advise on that. So that is something that you'll see in there. And then separately, I believe that with that change, if we do make that change, we'll want new membership and new leadership in that committee. And so I would love for people to kind of give some consideration to what that committee could be working on, and what type of role might make a particularly good chair for that. Another item is I got a call a couple months ago from Rep. Rammel, and he wanted me to get in touch with Representative Lauren Davis, who is out of Snohomish County. She is, I can't remember which district that is, but I did have a great conversation with her. And she is probably more than anybody in our legislature focused upon the very things that the IPR deals with: criminal justice, behavioral health, and the intersection of the two. She would like to give us a presentation around what is happening in Olympia, what legislation has passed, what is moving forward, what the trajectory of things, where the money is. And I think that presentation here would be fantastic. I am not suggesting that we put her on the June agenda or even the July agenda. And I want to get a read from all of you about maybe an evening session. She's willing to do that in June, I think, before school is out and people start thinking about summer vacations. I'd love to have Representative Davis here to make an hour-and-a-half long presentation with questions and such, and bring people from outside the IPR, invite them as well. It seems like a great opportunity. So one more little update. I reached out a couple months ago to Donna Gibbs, who is a vice president up at Western, interested in talking with them about reentry. I've been reading some very interesting articles about what some four-year universities elsewhere had done in working with people in the prison and jail systems and getting them, pursuing a life outside of beyond jail. And they're having some great successes around the nation. I had a good conversation with Donna. She invited Heather and Bertie and I up to speak with them. We had a number of provosts and others in the room, had lunch, and then we got a great follow-up email from Donna outlining some of the great opportunities that we might have. Western is very interested in engagement, particularly around our new facility, our new jail and behavioral care center, and what they can do. It was interesting. I took the time to speak with David Goldman in detail over a couple of meetings to find out where we are with education in our jail, what folks in the jail, what opportunities we have there, where they're coming from, what their educational dreams and hopes are, what are the opportunities. And Western was very gracious in hosting us and really engaging. So the first thing that looks like a great possibility is James McCafferty from the Center for Business and Economic. Bertie, do you remember what the full name of the organization? But you probably all know it's James McCafferty and another economist whose name is escaping me right now. They run a consulting group, and they are just the right folks, I think, to give us a proposal to help us with our sticky data issues and making sure that we get the sort of data systems we need to help policymakers make the decisions around our incarceration prevention and reduction programs and initiatives. So we had a good conversation with him, and I think there's some really good possibilities there. So those are the things I wanted to bring up, and that's a lot, I know. I'd love to hear from any of you on any of those topics.
Comments? Questions?
Jill here. I just want to say right quick that also on the June agenda will be the annual report.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mike?
Peter, that is a lot. I really appreciate though the work and the effort that you guys put into putting that down in writing. I can just say that that's very helpful. And I guess what I'm hearkening to is that I know you were talking partially about the proposal that you had on reconfiguration, and you went in addition to that in this meeting about Western, which is also interesting. And I think the task force could definitely use more impetus and kind of refine its target in terms of like reentry. I think there's some new opportunities of which, our Health and Community Services Department is already aware. But yeah, taking advantage of that and looking where we're at. So I appreciate that bringing that back into focus. For me, I know I'll want to digest that a little bit. I did skim it and I did read it. I'm not prepared to completely react to it. I can tell you though, at first blush, I really like a lot of what's in there. I like the kind of, where I think you've, suggested to the committees, hey, this part of the implementation plan fits there. My rough scan, that seems pretty on point. So I could just tell you my first blush looks really good. I would like to digest it a little bit before I can give you some more feedback, but at least wanted to give you some initial feedback that is basically positive, because that's kind of where I'm reacting to it as. And thank you all, and I guess it's all three of you, or you and Heather, for putting the work in to putting that in writing, because that's really helpful. So I can kind of digest that and think about that, and I'm happy to provide more feedback and think about that. Obviously, it affects my committee, so I care. And
yeah, of course.
But pretty interested, and want to thank you all for thank you. Yeah.
I should hasten to add before Raylene speaks that we had just the most amazing trip to Ohio, and we have a lot to report to y'all, particularly on reentry. I mean, the system for reentry they have there is going to inform us greatly. So I think I'm going to leave it to Barry and others on how we present that, all of our findings and such, but I am excited.
Yeah, I think we'll probably put something together that we could use for the council, for the task force, kind of a universal presentation on what we saw there. Once we circle everybody back up, I think, and have that discussion as a team, and compare notes. So I'm looking forward to that debrief. So Raylene.
I would like to echo Mike's thank yous to all of you that worked on this. I think it's very beneficial and appreciate it. I'd like to bring these proposals to the Legal and Justice Subcommittee so that they can review them and give feedback, and then regroup with you to let you know on this. The one thing that I think I want to make sure that as we move forward is that we continue to look at each area and try to implement the GARE, the racial equity toolkit. So that doesn't get lost in the wayside, but otherwise, thanks, and we'll keep looking at it and review it with the committee and get back to you. Thanks.
Jill.
Thank you. I'm wondering if for the task force's May agenda, if for some reason we don't get those presentations from the exec's office, Peter, do you want me to schedule the reconfiguration and focus as a substitute agenda item if we can't?
Jill,
Yes, please.
Jill, just want to, I kind of want to ask a question before we get into that. Do we think it's important for this to go out to the committees before it comes to the task force as a whole? I mean, I've heard two co-chairs say they want to have their committees digest this.
I do. Yeah, I think it kind of honors their process, their drive, and their direction. And I think it's a better space to hear it there first before the task force as a whole.
And I agree. I think I echo everybody's thanks for all the work, but I do think that the committee should see it first because they're the most directly affected. So, Raylene, is that a same hand? So let's get that before the committees right away so we can get down the road because there is a
Okay.
lot of great stuff in there.
Love it.
Peter?
One thing is Heather still on the call? I'm
Yes.
not seeing her.
Yes, she is.
Okay, so obviously, Heather has been very busy and she has not been able to see this work product. And so I want to give her a chance to look at it as my co-chair. So with that in mind, I want to respect her time, not try and put something on your plate, Heather, but I just need to say that.
So, okay, we'll Heather, go ahead.
I'm glad to review. My brain appreciates things like this. So thank you. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so we'll have the co-chairs do their review process and get it to the committees. I guess that's the plan. Anything else on task force items?
What do people think about our hosting Lauren Davis for a 90-minute event in June? I volunteer to work with whomever to make that happen. I think it would be, and then I would ask that we try to get everybody all the people who should be in the room, whatever room that is, and that would be up to the county what room is available.
Jill?
Thanks. Just a quick question. It sounds like you want this to be a task force meeting, correct, Peter?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter to me whose meeting it is, but she is going to be speaking to the very issues that we're responsible for. So in that sense, I'm proposing that it be a IPR meeting, but a special meeting, if we have such a thing.
Peter,
So
we have
the only meeting venue, in-person venue that we have to fit the full task force would be the council chambers. It's not really conducive layout for a 30-person meeting. It doesn't mean we can't use it.
would the
Yeah.
garden center work if we spread everybody out in the whole room?
Possibly. I can look into that. Are you wanting there to be a Zoom
I think
availability as well, or just an in-person?
I think you would need to,
Mhm.
especially if it's an
Yes.
IPRF meeting, because that would be OPMA and all that. So it would have to be a Zoom with a public output.
So you're thinking an evening meeting in the garden room?
Jill, really,
What's
really
what's
quick,
everybody
is
think?
there a middle ground between like, hosted by the IPRTF, but not open public meeting? And I'm trying to think, and maybe one of my fellow co-chairs or maybe council member Buchanan remembers, but we have done this before where we had a special meeting, but we didn't need a quorum because we weren't voting action. It was information, and I thought it was easier to navigate. But anyways, I'll stop.
Well, I think we can navigate the quorum piece no matter what we do. Because of what you just said, there's no action being taken. Bertie?
Yeah,
No,
what
hang on, Bertie. No, even discussion is considered action. So if you,
Okay.
it would have to
Roger
be
that.
an open meeting.
Gotcha.
My suggestion, because one of the other issues I think we want to do throughout the year is help the public know more about the IPRTF. A lot of people don't even know of its existence or what it does. So another way to frame this would be to have it, I don't know if you can sponsor it, but have it be by the IPRTF and open it to the public, so that it's not an official meeting and we get out of the need for some of the requirements, but that it helps publicize the work of the IPRTF and make this open to everybody who's interested.
Dan?
I thought.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer up that the city, we just finished construction on a multi-story building over in the, I guess it's Puget or Roosevelt neighborhood by Public Works, and has a big meeting space downstairs, and has capability for, it has screens and capability for Zoom and such. And since it's a city facility, I don't know that it would cost anything. And then the other piece is that if neither that or Garden View worked out, I just toured the public schools administration building on Barkley, and they have a large meeting space and they rent it out, but they might, because we're a governmental body, that might come at no cost. So just some options to throw out there to the group.
Okay, I guess we'll throw that into Jill's court as far as venue goes to find out what's available. Evening meetings, I wouldn't think there'd be the issue there would be with day meetings, as far as demand. So, Jill, are you prepared to take that on, or?
Yeah, I can look into it. One suggestion would be at the IPRTF meeting to just take a head count of IPRTF members to see who can and will attend an evening meeting. If we don't get a quorum, then that solves that issue right there, and it will affect how we organize such a meeting.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe some sort of a poll.
Yeah.
So we'd be encouraging people not to come from IPR, because that would be the opposite of what I would be going for.
No, I'm not
Oh,
saying encourage
oh,
people
okay,
not to
alright.
come. I'm saying ask them if they can and if they plan
Yeah.
to. And if
Yeah.
we get less than a quorum to commit, then we would just advertise it differently, I think is what I'm trying to say. It wouldn't be an IPRTF meeting necessarily.
Okay. Well, however we configure it, within the law is good. I think as many IPR folks as possible, plus interested members of the public and our providers in town, I think would be of great interest.
We did do those town hall style meetings with the Justice
Mhm.
Project. We did a couple of them that weren't IPTRF meetings, but they were in chambers, but we didn't have 30 people we needed to seat either. So, Bertie?
Well, I'm just thinking about the format, being mindful of the pros and cons of each. If it's a meeting, would that limit public comment to the end? So if we have a lot of interested people who want to ask questions of Lauren, would that become an issue, limiting open discussion to the public that we invite? Or could that, I'm thinking more of the type of thing you did around the ordinance and the town hall meetings, as opposed to an actual IPRTF meeting.
That's where we just had open mics and we let people flow.
That's what I'm thinking. On the other hand, if our purpose is to have an IPRTF specific discussion about it, we frame it a little differently. So I think that this group or the IPRTF as a whole probably should think about that and make an active decision of which way this is going to flow.
Okay. Peter?
This is going to be very much inside baseball, I would think, to get the most out of Lauren Davis. I believe she's going to be talking about things that once I start picturing the event that we had, the town hall, and the sort of people that came and questions, it was like and there's nothing wrong with that sort of forum, absolutely. But in 90 minutes, we're gonna wanna get into great detail about what the legislature is doing. And so that sounds like two different types of meeting to me. So maybe it should be an IPR meeting, and not open to the public, or all of our meetings are open to the
All of our
public.
meetings
So
are open to the
I'm
public.
a little confused as to what we're trying to get to.
Bertie?
Oh, well, I think Peter's points are good, but I'm just trying to get clarity so that when we plan it, we have a clear idea of the desired outcome. And I think, Peter, you make a very good point. We don't want just a random public meeting.
So, Jill, do you have kind of a consensus of how to proceed?
I think I do. I can look into some venues. I can talk to Dana about staffing an evening offsite meeting.
Yeah, that's an issue too, so.
That's, yeah. And then I think depending on if I can get a good sense of whether or not it will be an IPRTF meeting with a quorum of the members attending either virtually or in person, that will really help me to craft how the meeting is framed. Thank you for putting it that way, Bertie. That's helpful. I'll have to check the codes. I don't know that because this will be a special IPRTF meeting in theory. I don't think a public session is required for special meetings, but I'll have to check the code on that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or about that event? And do you have any kind of a idea when in June, Peter? Because that might be important when we start polling the IPTRF members.
Yeah, I've been working with Michaela, her legislative assistant, and there's a string of dates. I don't have it in front of me in June before school gets out that she's available and looked good. So I'll work with Jill to nail that down.
Yeah, if you could send me those dates, that would be great. Before school gets out, I'm assuming school gets out the first week of June sometime at the latest, so that pretty much leaves us.
No, it's later than that.
No, it's later than that. I think it's the third week of June, actually.
Yeah. They changed that over the years, so
Oh, wow, okay.
poor kids, they lose their June. Anything else on that event? That's a great idea. I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's move on to other business. Anybody have anything else? We'll move to public comment. Is there anyone in our public space that would like to speak to the steering committee?
There's nobody else here in the conference room, Barry.
Okay. Jill, is there anybody online?
We do have an attendee. If you would like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand now. Yeah, no hands are raised.
Okay, everybody, great discussion. Good to see everybody. Have a great weekend coming up, and we will, Raylene, last minute, good of the order.
Can I borrow Jill at the end?
Yes, you can.
Thank
Jill, are Dan and I staying on with you as well?
I think I have
You're
your
good now?
agenda for the May meeting. If we're gonna put the reconfiguration in focus plus the statement of work for the committee, that should be a good meeting. If
Well,
there's
we're also going to have a recap of the discussion that we had about becoming more action oriented with some things for the group to review.
okay.
So we're meeting with Brian Estes, who helped facilitate that conversation from our last meeting. Dan and I are meeting with him this afternoon to finalize that. So
Okay.
yes, that would be it for our agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
All right, everybody, thank you. And Peter, I'll give you a
Thanks, Howard.
call. I won't be done with my day until around 4:30 or so, or 4. So I'll give you a call when I'm done and we can talk about that piece for the report. Is that an old hand, Raylene? Yeah, okay. No, and yeah. All righty, everybody, have a good one. Take care.